Okay, sometimes when you're at a garage sale or some uncle leaves you stuff and you come across something like this and you suspect it's some kind of coffee machine, this is how you'll typically find it. I've come across other machines in storage units and stuff like that. Generally, the history is all the same, pretty much. What will happen is an espresso machine is abandoned for several reasons. Usually, the most common is the store or restaurant closed down, and if it's a rental, it should have been picked up by the vendor. If not, sometimes, because I've seen this happen, they go into bankruptcy and then the vendor's unable to pick it up without suing. Anyway, they get into a lot of paperwork, and what happens is the vendor either forgets about it or gives up on it, collects the insurance. So it ends up in some kind of storage with all this other restaurant equipment, and then eventually it gets sold off to recovery. Okay, and you'll open up a storage unit and you'll find all this restaurant equipment, and then you'll come across something like this. Okay, typically, because of it'd be nice to find out the history of a machine before you do anything with it, but sometimes you just can't. You know, you just don't know, which is in most cases. What will happen is, the majority of times the equipment is just shut down. Somebody comes through, like an electrician or a plumber, and they'll just disconnect everything and then put it in storage as is. They don't even, if it's partially disassembled because it was cleaned, then you won't even have all the parts. Okay, so in general, most times there's nothing wrong with the machine other than cleaning. Okay, and even if it is, like, for example, in fact, there's a restaurant right down here. I asked them, are they using the machine, and they said no, nobody knows how to clean it. And that's the most common explanation, is they don't know how to work the machine, they don't know how to clean it, and what happens, nobody uses it. So then the machine again gets pulled out, and the restaurant owner just puts it in storage. Maybe he'll get back to it or not, but otherwise it just ends up in storage, and then you come across it. Okay, now this particular one, very similar circumstance. 4 years ago we worked on it, and I have videos on this one. It's an M49. We got it working. I had originally pulled it out of, it was given to me as a retirement gift, and it was pulled because it wasn't working at that time. I got it working, and then 4 years ago I overhauled it. Well, sort of overhauled it and got it working again for Middle Quinter, another YouTuber who has one, and he got his machine working, and of course this one was working. So this has been sitting for the last 4 years with just that cover, and as you can see, just sitting there, it just, if you look at the previous videos, it was a lot cleaner. Now it's just sitting there, and it gets like this. So again, this was working when I put it away. Okay, the things to look for is, if the machine came out in your same locale, in other words, if the machine was in a restaurant in your city, more than likely all the electrical is already set up. Okay, especially if you find a plug on it. If you find a plug on it, or more than likely you'll just end up with something like this. Okay, and this is the original Cimbali plug, so it's got 4 leads on it. Some of them even have six wires on them. Generally speaking, if you don't have the manual, because they indicate, you can see all these are labeled. The manual will show you what the leads are. They're color coded. Otherwise, you're only looking for the 2 power wires and ground, because it's pretty much single phase. Now it is capable of going 3-phase, but I have yet to come across a 3-phase machine. Because in most cases 3-phase is not available. Okay, so odds are 99% of the time it's all single phase. Okay, and it's probably, if the machine has not been shipped internationally, it probably is set up for the same voltage. Okay, so before you do anything, go look for the panels. If you're, look for the panels. They should be all the same color, similar color. They'll usually say Cimbali on it. Okay, and try to get everything collected before you do anything. So right off the bat, this is missing the top cover. There's a hopper. There's a double hopper that goes right here. There's a cover plate here. There's also a cup tray. Sometimes with a cup heater. You have your side panel left and right. You have your back panel. This one would have a front plate. There would be a tray here, and you'd have a spout here. Some machines like the M50s have a separate spout for direct coffee. This is coffee and milk. Okay, this is the auto frothing, or actually just a frother. The automatic frothing is done within the pen. Okay. So, we're looking for, if you can, look to see if there's pucks, or they look like hockey pucks. Okay, they're the dregs. See if there's any dregs in the drawer. You want to inspect the dregs for the coarseness of the grind and how it's shaped. If it's nice puck shape, that means the machine was set up properly and everything's good and well. I know for me, I cleaned out the machine and the machine was making beautiful pucks at the time. So if, like I said, check for nice pucks, check for the coarseness, because that will give you an idea of the grind size that you're looking at. If it's really, really coarse, it's probably making Americanos. If it's really, really fine, like almost powdery, it's making espressos. So that will give you an indication how the machines will work. Okay, so dregs drawer. There is a key here, but a lot of times you can just use a screwdriver or a flat bladed or a flat bladed spatula, and it'll unlock the front cover. Okay, there are keys to have this. If you don't want one, you don't have one, just give me a yell. Otherwise, if you just stick in a blade, there's a little hook here. You just stick in a blade like that, and you just push it to the side. And if it's just a machine, it's just for you know, use at home, you can leave it unlocked because you don't expect anybody to be going in here. Now, okay, we have, I explained in another video, but I'll go over it real fast. We've got the grinders, got the turntable, diverter, pressure regulator. There's usually a pump, a water pump. This one, I thought this had one. Here. Okay, there's usually a water pump back here. This one doesn't have one. Probably got to reinstall one. Anyway, so the water pump in the back, turntable, upper group, lower group, power boards, and of course the drains. Okay, there's also behind this spout, there's also a drain manifold. Okay, on the side. Okay, on the side we have steam valves, air valves, the boiler, water level probe, element heater, pressure stat, remember that, steam valve, the dongles to change voltages, but like I said, unless you're in Hawaii or in Japan or someplace where there's multiple voltages, you don't usually have to worry. Here in Hawaii, because we have Japanese hotels, they like 200 volts, 208. So for us, we have to be careful because some hotels have 240, some have 220, some have 200. So yeah, for us, we got to check the voltage. Okay. Otherwise, if you, for example, if you got your machine in LA and it was used in LA, it's probably 220. Okay, so you don't got to worry about that. But in here, it's because it's multinational. There's different voltages. Yeah. Anyway, safety valve, anti-eddy valve here. Okay. The grinder size. This one has, because this grinder has two ports, it can grind 2 different kinds of beans. Okay. For example, a dark roast and a lighter roast. There's a cleaning chute, and most of the M50s, M49s, the cleaning chute is specifically for cleaning. Now, you may have an early model where there's only a single grinder. There was no way to make decaf or flavored coffee. Not that you'd want to ever put flavored coffee in a machine like this, but for example, let's say you only had one grinder, and the way you can tell if you only have one grinder is either you only have one of these dials, probably the red one, or you don't have any dial at all, and there's not a second grind head. So if you don't have any of this set up and it's just the one grinder head, sometimes the cleaning chute can, as an option, be used to drop pre-ground coffee. Okay. The reason for that is on a single head you couldn't use decaf. So the way to get around the decaf is you would disable the cleaning chute so that you could just open the cleaning chute and it would just drop straight into the dosing head, because that's what the cleaning chute does. It goes straight into the dosing head, and from there it goes straight into the piston, the turntable. So in that particular case, you would press the decaf key, and then you would lift up the cleaning pill chute. You drop your coffee like a spoonful of several spoonfuls of pre-ground coffee, and decaf in this case, and then you could process your coffee that way. But that's extremely unusual. I've only seen it one time, and this is in the early years when I started, and it was an M49. It was a M49, that one of the earliest models. Okay, the way the series goes is the M49, which is, it started out with a single grinder. The turntable, it has the smaller, like this one, it has a smaller group. And then it progresses up to the M50s, which is a bigger group. The reason is they wanted a bigger puck. and more coffee, especially with the American side where they wanted a bigger grind so they could make not Americanos per se, even though technically it is an Americano. The grind size is so big and there's so much coffee in it that it ended up being a brewed coffee instead of an espresso. Okay, I've even done Americanos like for a big mug, like a 12-ounce mug, where you shoot 2 doubles on an M50, okay, or M51. You also can do it on an M52. Okay. The difference is most of the machines. The difference is the group head, the grinders, like multiple grinders, bigger group head, bigger machine with more steam. If it's doing a lot of lattes, like in the case of one of the hotels down here, they did a lot of lattes. In fact, the majority of their drinks were lattes. So they wanted the M52, which is it's a lot bigger, okay? And so it had a bigger steam option. It even had, I think it had 2 heads. One for coffee, one for just latte. And on top of that, it had a steaming one and the tea one because it had the bigger boilers, okay? But anyway, so before you even turn it on, you need to hook up. You check the voltage as you can. You hook up water into the water. The water's underneath on the right side. Okay. Generally speaking, it should be filtered water. And if the water is really hard, you need a water softener, which is a separate unit. Okay. But if you're just testing it, just hook it up to straight water. Okay. It's just, you're not going to use it for a long period of time. Okay. There is safety switches here, which can be pulled out if you have this cover open. So you can pull it out, it activates everything. Okay, so with the cover closed, and supposing you had all the panels, you have the hopper. You can run this without the hopper. There's no sensor to sense the hopper. You'd have to hand pour beans. You could scoop whole beans in here. Okay, do not put ground coffee in the grinder. You'll clog up the grinder. Okay. If you're not sure about the cleaning chute or the decaf chute, don't lift this. Once you lift this, it locks the machine into a cleaning mode. Okay. Now, if you're starting the machine and the machine powers up, okay, there's an on-off switch here. Okay, so you power up, and you have the water hooked up. You got the drain tray. Everything's hooked up. Power is okay. The unit will power up, light up, and if everything looks clean, it'll say so. The display will come up. There's videos on what it should look like on a power up. Okay. What you can do is once you power up and it looks good, lift this up. It'll turn off again, and then what you'll do is you'll reactivate it by pulling the on-off, the safety switch here, and it will reheat again, and everything's looking fine. Without dropping anything in, lift up the cleaning chute and close it down. The display will show cleaning. Okay. Now for the next 8.5 minutes, what will happen is this group will move to the next one. There's probably a puck in here, so that's another good indication. It'll move and it'll drop the puck down, and you can check it. Then you can check the puck. Okay, that's been sitting in there for years or whatever, but it'll give you a good idea of how the grind was and what kind of coffee they're using. So anyway, it'll move the turntable. It'll drop back down. Water will start flushing out. You probably hear the pump running. Okay, so the water will start rushing out, and then it'll do that for the next 8 minutes. It'll go on and off, on and off. Water will come out at times, and then finally, when it's done, this thing will lift up and it'll move to the next position. Okay. Okay. And then you know it's done its cleaning cycle. You know that the turntable moves. Everything looks. Generally speaking, if the cleaning cycle works fine, it doesn't lock up, like it doesn't lock halfway up or gets stuck or doesn't move at all. Generally speaking, you're pretty much ready to go. Okay. At that point, I would try it one more time, and I would, because you have 4 cylinders, I would go through four cleaning cycles. Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of water. Okay. So that means every single cylinder is clean, and the turntable gets clean too. Everything gets flushed out. All the valves gets more or less flushed out and operating. If it stops giving water for some reason, then that means a valve got stuck. Okay. By then the steam one should be running. You can hit your other buttons. You can hit your other buttons like steam. Like this one has a steam button. You hit the steam. Okay, I disconnected mine. I gave my steam one to Middle Quinter on his machine. He's got it. But anyway, let's say if there was a steam one here, I'd hit steam and I'd get steam. Okay. Once everything's clean, you can go through without beans. You can press your different selections, see what's working. You'll hear the grinder grind. You know, for example, I press Americano. You'll hear the grinder grind, and then you'll hear the turntable move. It'll drop in. Coffee will start coming out of the spout, and then you look for the amount. What will happen is, because we don't have any beans, it'll just be the water. It'll be a little higher than normal, because got to remember that the coffee does get absorbed. So the water's a little higher when it's just plain water. And then it'll cycle through. The turntable will move to the next position. Go ahead and hit your the next button. In this case, cappuccino. We're expecting the coffee and then the milk. And latte is the milk first and coffee last. And in decaf, in this particular case, we have 2 grinders. So when we press a decaf, then we press like Americano, it would run the decaf coffee through. So same thing. So once a note, once you press decaf, anything you press after that will be decaf. Okay, and then it'll go back to normal. Okay, in this particular case, we have milk, which would come out of the frothing head. So we press this and it would give out froth milk. Usually in this case, it's for if you want to manually make a cappuccino and you want to change the order, because normally you put the I'm trying to remember, you put the coffee, you put the coffee in first and then you put the milk. Okay, but if you want to reverse that, you could hit the milk, put the milk in first, and then hit the espresso to get your coffee after. You know, kind of like a latte. On the latte, if you want extra milk, you just hit that, and it would give you the same amount. In this particular machine, it would give you the same amount as a cappuccino. So it'd be like a 1.5 milk latte. Or if you wanted say a double espresso, so you would hit you could hit latte, which would get one shot of espresso, and then you can hit another shot of espresso, or 3 shots of espresso, and you keep pressing, you keep adding shot after shot. You know, if they wanted a 5 shot, so you do the latte, you do 1 more espresso, another espresso, and then another espresso, and that's your 5-shot latte. So yeah, you can go crazy. Okay, now all of these are programmable. There is a programming page where you can set up each particular setup for your own liking. This one is set for kind of because we're here in the States. Most people want Americano, latte, and cappuccino. We get a few requests for espresso, not too many, but anyway, that's why it's on the far right. Okay, and then froth milk for you know, if they want that, what's that, macchiato, whereas they just want the foam. So anyway, so your specialties can be done here. The steaming is for making if you want to manually froth milk and you want to do the froth milk design, stuff like that. So if you had the steam one here, this one, there's actually an option to do tea, hot water, and generally speaking, I mean, since I'm gonna rebuild this, I may put the steam and the tea. Yeah, I'll probably put the steam and the T1 back in. The T1 is just a little head here. It's part of here. This is the steam, and this is the T1. So those options are all available. Most of it is done by valves. Okay, so in this particular case, yeah, this is the cold water feed. Yeah, this is the steam. Okay, so this is a steam valve. It has the steam option, but it's disconnected. The steam outputs here because there's no wand. I gotta put the wand back in. Yeah, that part ended up in Ireland. Okay, so anyway, so we'll come back and see if I can find the pump. The pump belongs in here. And see if we can put this back together. Like, I do know this machine works. It's not that it's missing parts, it's just that it was modified. For example, the water pressure here is high enough, I didn't have to use a pump, but I'm gonna need to put the pump back. I want to put this back to the original setup. I have another machine, an M50, it's in the house. That one works too, I just haven't used it. In that particular case, I'll probably do a video on that one, how to check a machine that's been sitting but is supposedly left in perfect working condition, but it's just been sitting there for, in that particular one, I think 11 years. Okay, so there's things you need to check on that one, a little bit more detailed. I mean, you know, the machine works, it's just been sitting there for, like in this case, 11 years. It hasn't been used. So there are some issues, mostly to do with rust and calcium. Okay, usually frozen valves. Anyway, we'll get this back up and we'll see how it looks.